Today on Nova Legends podcast, I have St. Louis Billiken coach Rebecca Tillett, whose team is in the NIT final in just her second year at St. Louis. Coach, congratulations. Great to meet you. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the coverage of our team and our women. Just amazing.
Yeah, well, this is awesome. Let me give you a quick background for folks who may have forgotten briefly who you are, because you're in the process of reminding us. You played at Osbourn Park in Manassas area, Prince William County. You went to William and Mary, where you were a captain there. You got into high school coaching, which is an interesting progression to the top of as you move your way to the top of college basketball. It's very fascinating. You were at Osbourn and also Forest Park. Then you became an assistant, ended up being at Longwood for a few years, took them to the first ever NCAA tournament. You may have met a player there named Kyla McMakin, who was actually a pretty good player who played at Longwood. And then, as I said before, you ended up at St. Louis your first year there. You guys, I believe, won the Atlantic 10 and got to the NCAA tournament. This year, you beat a good BCU team in the A10. Unfortunately, came up a little bit short, but qualified for the NIT, and you're making the most of it. Coach, did I get most of that correct?
You got all of it correct. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Great research.
Yeah, it was a quick one, but we got there. Well, look. First, I wanted to ask you. When you qualify for the NIT, is it like the men's game, and where the coaches bring the team together, and you guys have to decide? You guys have exams. It's been a long year. How are we going to handle this? Did you guys have to have a long conversation before you decided to go to the NIT?
We did not have a long conversation. I checked in with our captains and said, "Do we want to do it?" And they were like, "Let's do it." And off we went.
Yeah. Now, when you think about the NIT, what are the goals any different than any other tournament? Just win as many games as possible and do as best you can. Or when you're in NIT, are you a little bit in a growth mode, trying to think about playing some folks you may not have played? What is the mindset for a coach when you go to the NIT?
I think it can depend on where you are with your roster. We have a really veteran roster, and then we also have, the returning players that are coming back next year that are going to take on expansive roles. So I think we're doing both, right? We're honoring the seniors and the women that have exhausted their NCAA eligibility. And then we're also getting ready for the group that will lead us into the next, chapter of our history that we're writing together.
Yeah. Well, I want to get back to the season and the NIT and of course your roster, but I wanted to go back to being a high school coach. That's a very different route than most college head coaches take. I would think you would get amazing training being a high school coach, because you're responsible for everything, whereas a college assistant, is only responsible for certain things. But what is the journey to the head coaching job like from a high school coach?
Yeah. I think there's so many tremendous high school coaches out there, what they do daily and yearly for their students. For me, I feel like that's where I grew up as a coach, right? I'm in a high school, a coaching family. My dad's, a Hall of Fame coach at Osbourn Park High School. And then my brother's all coach. So,
he's at Gainesville, right, Coach? My
brother Daniel's at Gainesville. Yep. Both of them are. One coaches soccer, one coaches basketball.
That's awesome.
And then my dad's retired. So, for me, growing up as a coach, I think about it now when I have the opportunities to mentor other coaches, every Sunday night at dinner, I would sit down with all of the coaches that happen to be my family members and talk about our teams and what we want our teams to do better and where we want them to grow. So I certainly grew up in that space. The high school players that I'm still connected to follow our team now and text me after the games, and I write them. And I wouldn't have ever learned how to do it the way that we do it without having that experience as a high school coach. So I'm so grateful for that. Certainly a non-traditional path. But I think it's helped, myself and our staff, learn how to do some things differently than maybe other people might try to do them.
Yeah. And one thing I didn't mention, you have three kids and a husband as well. So it's not like you're just sitting around coaching. You're a very busy woman. Well, I had forgotten that your father, he's a legendary name. What are some of the things you learned from him that you still use today in your coaching?
Yeah. So my dad, Larry Nemerow, my goodness. He just was all about building the team. Like, so one thing that I tell our team every year when we're getting ready to start a new journey together is we want to hang banners, right? That's what we want to do. But why would we want to hang a banner, right? We're not talking about the championship ring. We're not talking about the trophy. We're talking about the banner. Well, the banner hangs forever at that institution and is a reminder of what you did with that group of people. And so I use that every year. That's something I learned from him. And both my parents are career educators and just really caring. We all grew up watching them care for other people. And so I think that's just, how I grew up is to care for other people. So for me, there's so much magic this time of the year in how teams make these types of runs. And as a coach, we think we create these situations and scenarios for a team to be successful. And then when it plays out in front of you, sometimes a lesson from 10 games ago shows up in a game that you need to advance, and we've certainly felt that during this run.
Yeah. Are you still in contact with them? If you have questions, you ever want to bounce ideas off them because they're such experienced coaches? I heard your brother get interviewed this year. I was very impressed with him. You guys have great conversations about your team and even personnel.
We do, and they will still send me their feedback.
whether you ask for it or not, you get it, right?
Which is so great. Yeah. My brother Daniel, he and I coached early on in our career together, and I texted him last night and I'm like, I still learned so much from you, and he's like, oh my goodness, you saying that, but it's true. And yes, I still talk to them. And one thing my dad does that is so neat as a mentoring coach is he'll say, now I'm not at practice, so I don't know everything that you're seeing, but I would like to add this piece of information to your thought process. So he's so respectful of that practice space.
Yeah. Was it hard for you as a head coach who experienced success to step back and be an assistant and not be responsible for all decisions? I guess assistant coaches, you do a lot of recruiting, but you're kind of sometimes focused on certain aspects of a team. Was it hard for you to take that step back and be an assistant?
I think the most challenging part of that for me was because I knew what I think a head coach needs. Initially, when I went back to being an assistant, you don't want to press the boundary too far because how much the head coach has on their plate. And I think that I had to learn in my time going back as an assistant well, that's exactly what the head coach wants you to do, right? They want you to push their thought process. So I had to learn that and navigate that space. I learned so much working for Tom McConnell up at Indiana, University of Pennsylvania, and then for Stephanie Pemper at the Naval Academy. It definitely shaped, what we're able to do now.
What was the feeling when Longwood called and offered you your first Division I job?
Oh, it's so great. I was walking up and down my driveway in Woodbine Woods off of 234 and just thinking through the process, right? Like this is, a dream come true. And actually, Todd Dyer, who went to Osbourn Park and coaches at Longwood on women's soccer, he had said to me in the interview process, what's your dream job, right? And I was like, I just want to be a Division I head coach, right? At that time, coming from being a high school coach and a college assistant, that was just the biggest thing I could dream of at that time.
Yeah. It's a beautiful town. I got family from Pamplin, Farmville. I talked to Coach Kimbrough about a couple of weeks ago. They got to the Final Four. Longwood boys got to the NCAA tournament. It's an exciting time in Farmville. How were you able to turn? I mean, the record, I can't remember it offhand, but the record was challenged. How were you able to turn it around so quickly in a very turbulent time because of COVID and all the other things going on in the world?
I think it's just the people that you get with you, right? And when we got there, we felt like the women that were already there, they were really hungry to make a change at Longwood and be successful. And so we came in and we implemented what we thought would be the right types of, value systems for a team and building camaraderie. And, just brick by brick, we built that. And gosh, you just think about the women there and the ascension that the program made because of them, right? We had to convince people right? As you said,
Yeah.
the record wasn't great. And you got to tell them, right, but you can be the ones that make the record great. And they did just that.
Yeah. Well, one thing about coaching is that when you get these bigger jobs, you have to take them often. And I know it's hard. How difficult was it for you to leave after just, a few years and it's going really well? It must have been a very tough decision, even though, these jobs don't come around every day. You have to take them when they come.
It was a tough decision. And I actually, I didn't take the first opportunity. I was really happy with what we were doing at Longwood and the growth that we'd made. And, in our profession, right, you have to work to find your peace, right, because of the pace of our profession. And so I had a lot of peace while I coached at Longwood. And then when this opportunity came, it seemed like this was the next right step, with an opportunity to take another team and do it. And then, of course, a bit of a, just a great story of what happened last season. And then this season presented different challenges. And yet this group of women decided, no, we're still going to make our mark. And that's what they're doing with the opportunity to play for a championship on Saturday.
Yeah. Were the kids excited to move from Farmville to St. Louis, or they probably had no idea, or?
Yeah, my own children, I think there were mixed reviews initially, right? Because we've been in Virginia, except for the 1 year in Pennsylvania. But no, everybody's, made the leap together and found some really, really neat opportunities in St. Louis as well.
Well, you did the same thing in St. Louis. You heard
This will be final
first
call,
year,
final
you got them
voting
right into the
opportunity.
NCAA tournament. Going in, what were the expectations? Did you think you'd be able to, in the first year, get to the tournament?
Well, it's interesting. Our athletic director and I had that conversation, right, in the initial stages of year one at Longwood at St. Louis. And the question he asked me, how long? Like, what do you think? And I was like, well, I'm a competitive woman. So we did it in 4 at Longwood. We want to do it faster here. I didn't know that faster was going to be 1 year, but really, really grateful that it was.
Yeah, it's incredible. Well, let's go to this year. Now, this year, the season, I think it's fair to say, was a little up and down, and you had a kind of a purple patch in the mid-season where you lost some games, but you were able to really come on strong in the end, played really well in the A-10 tournament, and then again, you're on a 5-game winning streak. Central Arkansas, Northern Iowa, Purdue, Fort Wayne, Wisconsin. Must have been great to beat a Big Ten team, and then Vermont. So how would you characterize this season in the kind of the ups and downs that you've experienced?
Yeah, the segment, if you look at our schedule, there's this one segment where it's like win, loss, win, loss, win, loss.
Yeah.
And, we remember as a group, like, that's just so unusual. It doesn't really happen that way. And we had said as a staff, if we teach our team how to figure out to win 3 in a row, like, we really felt like that was the marker. If we could win 3 in a row, we could potentially just explode with this team, because we felt like we had the right people, we had the right level of talent. It just was a matter of getting everybody to play together well. And like all teams in the country, we had some injuries at not the best times that we had to work through. But in the end, all of those moments led to the moment we're in now.
Yeah, incredible. Well, let's talk a little about your team. I mentioned Kyla McMakin, who was at Longwood. She's a graduate student, and Peyton Kennedy. You guys shoot a high percentage from 3-pointers, and you looks like you shoot a lot of them. Did I get that right?
We don't shoot as many as maybe some of our opponents. The A-10 loves to shoot them. We don't shoot them as much as some of our opponents, but we do want to shoot them, and we want to make them.
Yeah. But what about some of the other personnel? Yeah. I'm sorry?
Yeah. So, well, Kyla obviously came with us from Longwood to St. Louis, and it's just been such a special career. We were outside of the baseball stadium in St. Louis when she committed on her official visit to St. Louis. And she literally said to me, "You want to go win another one?" And we did. And then here we are again with an opportunity to do it again. And her leadership for this program has just been incredible. And then for me as a coach, it'll be hard to imagine having practices without Kyla. She's, 5 years with us. And then Peyton, to come in and you have a new coaching staff in your junior year, right? It can be uneasy for a student athlete. What are they going to expect from me? What do they see in my game? And just to watch her confidence and her growth as a player and a woman, so special. And man, we just get so excited, each play that that both of them make on the court, on defense and on offense.
And Peyton, she's eligible next year with the COVID year or not? I don't know.
She is eligible. She has one more year of eligibility.
Oh, great. Well, they're very lucky to have you as a role model, and hopefully Kyla, maybe she'll be your graduate assistant, and maybe you can, since you guys have been together for so long, you guys can continue going forward. So we have Minnesota this week, another Big Ten team.
Yeah.
That would be awesome to beat two Big Ten teams on the way to a championship. What do you expect from Minnesota?
You know, I think some of it is when we get into these games, there's generally additional size that we have to, you know, figure out how to navigate. So they certainly have a post player that we're going to have to, you know, make some plans for. And at this time of the year, it's, you know, which team really still wants to be playing, you know, and really get after it. And I think both teams will obviously be up for a championship opportunity. And then how quickly can we adjust to how the game changes within, you know, the 40 minutes, and how does our team respond to those adjustments, which during this run, our team has just been really, really elite at that, including, you know, last night against Vermont. And we, you know, had one quarter where we really struggled. We go in at halftime and our team just was determined to figure it out together and come out and get the victory.
Yeah, it looks like when you've been through a little adversity, it makes it that much sweeter, but sometimes it makes it a little bit easier to do it because you've been there before. Well, look, I wish you good luck. I'll make sure on our social media that we put the time and place of the game so folks can tune in and cheer you on. I got a lot of local folks that will watch this and will know about it. I did want to ask you just to end, I know you have to go. How have you found women's college basketball at this moment? It is an historic time. The women's tournament is getting more, the NCAA tournament is getting more eyes than the men's. The game the other night was one of the biggest sporting events of all time, but some of the records that it broke were unbelievable, unimaginable. I mean, this is an incredible time to be in women's college basketball. And also the women are doing it their own way. They're showing attitude. They're talking trash. The things we may not necessarily attribute to women's basketball, we're seeing all sides, and the more we see, the more people are loving it. It must be a very exciting time for you to be a part of women's basketball.
It's absolutely incredible. I'm here for all of it. You know, I think part of it is, you know, I've been fortunate to be going to, you know, the tournament games for years because our convention is there. So even as a high school coach, I would pay my way and go to learn and go to the sessions. And, you know, those games, those Final Four games have been incredible for years. The difference now is it's more public. The stories are being told. The media has got to tell the stories. They're just so compelling. And so you think about all the women before this moment that put all of us in this situation to be in this moment. And I think, you know, now people are understanding the true value in investing in women's sports. You know, sometimes I'll say, people used to say it's the nice thing to do, right? And I'll say it was always the right thing to do to cover women's sports. And now it's a profitable thing to do. So we'll see the investments continue to rise.
It's truly unbelievable. And, you know, women's tennis has had times when it's eclipsed the men. The golf has been big. So it's happened in other sports. So it's not like it's unprecedented. But I don't know if we ever saw this coming in basketball. You mentioned some of the great players, Cheryl Miller, Cheryl Swoops, Bird, Taurasi. There's so many. And that, you know, they're generational players. And you're right. And the coaches too, Pat Summitt, all the things, all those pioneers did. And it's good to see it's arrived. And I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. So
I don't think so either. We want everyone to tune into our game and then tune in to all of the Final Four games for the women. Just an incredible time to be a part of women's sports.
Yeah. Well, look, Coach, I really appreciate. Sorry to hassle you at the last moment, but I'm so glad you. I got to meet you, and you got a chance to come on and talk about your team. Very excited, and you just an amazing story. So I'm excited for you. Hope you can win this one and bring it home from Northern Virginia. St. Louis too.
Me too. Thank you so much for the coverage.
Oh, of course. Anytime. Hopefully we can keep in touch.
I would love to. I would love to.
Great, Coach. Take care and good luck.